Hello, my name is Bobby Lynn Kekik, and I'm the Director for New Student Programs. I'm joined today with my colleagues from the Center for International Students and Scholars, the Residential Center, and Academic Services. We want to thank you for taking some time to join us today for our Falcon live chat for new international students and families. We acknowledge that these are unprecedented times and there's a lot of uncertainty, but we hope to spend some time together today to discuss information and resources, updates, and provide an opportunity for live question and answer. We ask that you direct any questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And we are recording this, so you'll be able to refer back to this at a later time. And for those of you who may be watching the pre-recorded live chat, please feel free to direct any questions that you may have to the email addresses listed at the end of this chat. Thank you again, and we're going to start with some introductions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Keys, and I'm the Director of Housing and the Residential Center. I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you today.
Hello, everyone. My name is PJ Dixon. I work in the Office of Academic Services, where I help lead up efforts to support our new students. Nice to talk to you again.
So we'll start off with a short bit of information about the Center for International Students and Scholars and who we are and what we do. So Christine and I both work for the Center for International Students and Scholars, and we work with about 1,500 international students on campus, and as well as students who've graduated but are still using their work authorization, and we're still in touch with them as they maintain their F1 student status. So our office works with all students who are on visas to study in the United States, so F1 visas or J1 visas. And we have a pretty good population of undergraduates and graduates, also exchange students and some students who are doing work authorization after graduation. So we look forward to working with all of you. We have students from over 90 countries who are represented. We understand that the fall semester will be a little bit different than they have been in the past because of the pandemic, but we're excited to share updates with you today about what is going on and to tell you a little bit more about our office. So we have a staff of 5, or a team of 5 people that work in the CISS. So you'll see Christine and I are up here, as well as Teresa Lambrou, who's our administrative coordinator, Anna Garson, who is our senior international student and scholar advisor, and Brittany Mackey, who many of you may have spoken to because she is our international student advisor and is working on many of your I20s as you prepare to get your visas and enter the country. We also normally have student employees and interns who also work in our office and help us to just keep up with all the flow of activity that's happening throughout the year. So the things that our office can help you with specifically, we want to make sure that you know all the reasons to come to us, but we also have other friends on this call from new student programs, academic affairs, and from residential life, so that you can learn more about the different sort of roles that different offices play in your experience at Bentley. So in particular, the Center for International Students and Scholars can help you with arrival and immigration information. We will help to maintain your immigration status. So if you're on an F1 visa, which I assume most of you will be, we would help with immigration advising questions. So that would be related to getting your Form I-20, instructions about how to get your F1 visa. If you have questions related to changing your visa status, or anything related to changing laws and regulations, which we've seen a lot of recently, then we are the go-to office. We also can answer your questions about employment options, so whether you'd like to work on campus or off campus, using specific types of work authorization, such as optional practical training, OPT, or curricular practical training, CPT. We can also answer questions about those. We will help you to make sure that you have an updated travel signature, so any student who's on the F1 visa does need to get a signature on their Form I-20 that is valid for a year, but you need to have a signature in order to re-enter the US. So we want to make sure that you have updated travel signatures once you get to the US. If it's obviously Your new students, it's your first time coming to the United States, you don't need a travel signature just yet, but you do need the Form I-20. We can also help with questions about adjusting to life in the US, culture shock, integration, classroom concerns. We will always be ready and available to help with referring you to other resources such as housing and academic advising, new student programs, counseling, other student programs. And we ourselves host different cultural programs throughout the year. So we're looking forward to inviting you into those and telling you more about what they are once you are on campus. So Christine will jump in here and tell us a little bit more about what is the latest news in terms of immigration, travel news, what's going on with the government, and any updates and regulations.
All right, thank you, Nia. So can everybody hear me okay? Just making sure, because sometimes my mic, great, okay. So I'm so pleased to be speaking with everyone today. We know that it's a wild time. Things are changing so quickly, and particularly for our international students. The past few weeks have really been up and down and confusing, and so we're doing our very, very best. I'm so glad we have this opportunity to speak with you today, because we're doing our best to clarify all of the questions that are out there about how to come to the US, what this means for your immigration status, and everything we can try to answer for you today. I will say that we still don't know all the answers and things are still changing, but we are doing our best to get as many answers out there and available to you as we can. The first section I want to talk to you about is travel. This is a section that we receive a lot of questions about. So I'm going to explain to you about traveling to the US, and then we will talk about the classes and what all of the new guidance means for our international students. So in terms of travel, we have been creating Form I-20s for our new students. These I-20s are what you will need to obtain an F1 visa at the consulate in your home country. We have been creating and mailing those, excuse me, and we are also able to send electronic copies of those due to COVID-19. So if anyone needs an electronic copy, if for some reason the hard copy has not made its way to you yet, please let us know and we'll be happy to issue an electronic copy as well so you can get started on the embassy and consulate interview process. We did send out a supplemental letter yesterday, which was based on guidance from last week from the government. That letter is no longer needed, and I'll explain about the guidance on the next slide, but I don't want to worry people. That may have caused confusion. It's not harmful to have that letter. Basically, it's just a letter that says that Bentley is going to have some in-person options available for our international students, so it's fine to have that letter, but it is no longer a requirement to be able to get that visa in your passport. Today is July 15th, so US consulates and embassies have actually begun a phased reopening of their services as of today. That does not mean that every country has reopened their consulates or embassies today, but it does mean that the State Department has suggested that the reopening can begin today on a phased basis. So for each of your countries, this will be different, but we are encouraged by the fact that the consulates and embassies are reopening, and we suggest that you check with your local US consulate or embassy in order to determine what their particular opening hours are and what their resumption process will be for issuing visas. Excuse me. People often ask us about travel restrictions. These are changing quite rapidly. On our website, we have posted a link to a NAFSA resource. This is our professional organization. They have posted a resource which allows students to be able to access travel information for any of the countries in as close to real time as we can possibly get. So we encourage you to, excuse me, to check that website, which is on our bentley.edu/CISS site. We suggest waiting a little bit to make flight arrangements if at all possible, because we are not yet confirmed on the arrangements that will be happening once you arrive to campus. So if at all possible to hold on those flight arrangements, I do recommend that. You can certainly make flight arrangements and hopefully do your best to make sure those arrangements are flexible, because of the way that the nature of things changing so quickly. We would hate for people to be stuck with a ticket that was unable to be changed if something were to change by the time school starts. We still have another month and a half. So as you've seen, things change very quickly. We also get asked about quarantining at Bentley. I have put a note on here that says follow guidance. We are also waiting on this because we do not know yet the requirements for what quarantining will be for the state of Massachusetts at the time of the start of our semester. So we are going to be posting more information on our sites as soon as we know more about that. So please stay tuned, and thank you for your patience while we figure out the quarantine situation. I keep mentioning SEVP guidance, and I want to explain that a little bit. So in the past week or so, there has been quite a lot of news coming out of our government in terms of regulations for our international students. So last Monday, July 6th, SEVP, which stands for Student Exchange Visitor Program, they released guidance that was going to be very challenging for our international students to maintain. They then the next day released an FAQ to clarify that guidance, and it caused more confusion. Unfortunately, instead of clarifying things, it actually provided contradictory information. So last week we were all sort of running around trying to sort out what all of this meant. We were told that international students would have to take an in-person class. We were told that students outside the US would no longer be maintaining status. We were told a bunch of information that was really disconcerting and worrisome for all of us and for all of our international students. Conveniently and very fortunately, yesterday, there was a lawsuit brought about against the government from Harvard and MIT. You may have heard about this. And there was a fortunate result in that they have taken away both sets of guidance. They have basically just rescinded the guidance. So that guidance that they issued that was confusing and concerning has just been taken away. So what that means is that we are now back to the original guidance that the government posted at the first instance of when we all started to close things down for COVID. So this is actually really good news for our international students at Bentley, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what that means. But I did want to walk you through, since the last week and a half has been so confusing for everyone. So there was guidance, it was confusing and scary. The guidance is now gone. That's kind of the quick summary of what has happened in the last week and a half. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. So what this means for your F1 status. If you are going to be in F1 status, you will be taking a full-time course load. That is always the case, that always has been the case, and that always will be the case. Okay, so you need to take a full load of courses in order to be an F1 international student. Now, as of yesterday, you can be inside the US and taking online classes. New students must be taking classes on campus to begin their F1 status. So if you have not yet ever been in the country on F1 status, you do need to be in the US to get that started. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't take classes. You may take classes outside the US as well. You just won't be in your F1 immigration status. And my next slide is going to break that option down a little bit further as well. So this is what we know, is that you can be in the US, you can take classes online. We no longer have that in-person requirement, we think, and that you will be able to begin your F1 status when you enter the country. There are still some things we don't know. I apologize for skipping the slide there. The guidance that is still unclear. So we believe that initial students, which is you, may not be able to have your F1 status outside of the US. You will have to wait until you get into the US to enter your F1 status. We are waiting. They have mentioned that there may be further guidance for first year students. So that is what we are waiting to determine as well. And that may change things as things change very quickly. We are also unclear on what this means for Seevis transfer students. So those are students that have already been in the US, perhaps at a high school, in F1 status. So we are trying to determine what this new guidance that is no longer guidance, we are trying to determine what that means for students who are in that status as well. So that's one of the questions we still have. I know it's a lot of information, so I tried to break this slide down into a really clear, what are your options for the fall semester? Because I know how confusing this can all be. So I've kind of broken it down into two options here. If you're outside the US, you can take a full load or a partial load. You can take 2 courses, you can take 4 courses, you can take a certain number of courses if you are outside the US, okay? You can take those online courses. There's confusing information out there that seems to state that you can't take online courses. That is not true. The US government certainly cannot stop you from taking your online courses from outside the US. So you are absolutely entitled to take online courses from outside the US. So likely in this situation, you will not be in F1 status. But the positive side of that is that it actually gives you more time to get your visa. So if you decide to remain in your home country for the fall semester and take online courses, it will give you the entire fall semester to obtain that visa before you will be hopefully entering the US in January. So I actually think that might be a positive thing for those of you who decide to stay behind, because the embassies and consulates are struggling to keep up with the backlog that they have right now. So that's option one, you are outside the US. Option two is you are inside the US. And if that is the case, you will be taking a full course load. Okay, so you must take at least 12 credits as an undergraduate student to maintain that full course load. You will have your F1 status. So you need to get that F1 visa before you are able to enter the US if you're going to take classes in the US. There's an important date here that you must arrive by September 28th. That is because in order to be registered for the fall semester in F1 status, we need to do so before the 30-day window closes after the start of our semester. So that September 28th date is really, really important for those of you who have late visa appointments or are trying desperately to get your visas in time and you might be a little bit late on your arrival. It's fine as long as you are at Bentley by September 28th. If you do not make it to Bentley by September 28th, you'll need to wait, continue your classes online, and enter the US in January. If you are entering the US, you are allowed to take online courses. That is because they have taken away that guidance that was confusing about online versus in person. However, we are aware that the government may change things. So we do have some special first-year seminar accommodations that we are going to be likely continuing with as a fail-safe for you. So what we had worked on last week is that for your first year seminar class, we had saved seats for all of the international students who are starting at Bentley that will need to be on campus and need to have an in-person class. We are still going to proceed with that just in case the US government comes back and says brand new students actually do need to have a seat in the class. So likely we will be continuing with that and we will be communicating with you about that in the coming weeks. I know your first year registration is next week, and that's partly why we have PJ on this call from Academic Services to be able to address that question with you. Here is our contact information. And again, as Nia said, this is just for the Center for International Students and Scholars. We also have a bunch of colleagues on the call who also have contact information, and we're going to share that slide towards the end. But people often want to know how to get in touch with us. So we are available by email, by phone, and by Zoom throughout this entire remote working period. So all of that information is on our website. And so we try to be as accessible to students as we can because we know people have a lot of questions. I do want to open it up for questions through the Q&A. There's a Q&A feature in the webinar, so if you could share questions with us there, that would be great. And I think BL is going to help us moderate those questions. And she also has collected a couple of questions ahead of time from the registration. So I'm going to turn it over to BL, and hopefully you can walk us through some of the questions our students have.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And thank you, Christine and Nia, for sharing some of that really important information. I know that, as we mentioned, there is some uncertainty, and we are trying to make sure that we keep our students as updated as possible. But making sure that we can continue to communicate is going to be key. And we're here to answer these questions. So we're going to go ahead and start with some of the questions that have been posed to us live, and then we're going to take a look at some of the questions that we received prior to our live event. So there was one question that was posed about the self-quarantine period and how that may impact a student's experience while they're on campus. I know there's still a lot of details to be ironed out, but Kat, would you mind addressing that for the group?
Absolutely. So we realize that we're still waiting on guidance from higher education in the state of Massachusetts. So that was supposed to come out earlier, I believe on the 6th, but it has not yet been released, which is part of the delay. And currently on campus, as you likely completed your COVID addendum or filled out information regarding your contract release, my team is actually working on understanding the current campus mapping, meaning we are removing students who no longer want to live on campus for the fall And we are also trying to identify buildings on campus that will be used for quarantine and for isolation, which is also guidance from the state and from the CDC. So our hope is by the end of next week, if not the following week, we will have absolute confirmation in terms of students' housing assignments. We will be reaching out to students on the wait list, which is good news because we are able to pull some of those students, if not many of them, back into housing. And we'll be able to provide an update on the quarantine status. So currently in Massachusetts from the governor, there is guidance which is strongly recommended for students outside of New England, New York, and New Jersey to quarantine. But right now we're still waiting on the updated higher ed guidance, and we'll definitely communicate with you on what you need to do, when you can arrive, and what we'll be offering you from a university perspective. So we know it's a little bit nerve-wracking and we appreciate your patience, but hopefully again by probably July 30th, we'll have an update for you on what that looks like.
There was another question, and I think part of this might be connected to visa and part of it might be connected to the residential center. So I'm going to ask this, and then please, Kat and or Nia or Christine, if there are any follow-ups, please feel free to add that. Do international students who are planning to live on campus or live in the United States need to leave the country after the Thanksgiving break?
If you want, I can get started on that one since the question is about leaving the country, and then I'll have Kat address the residential on-campus piece. There, I can certainly understand where the confusion on that comes from. That was part of the confusing guidance that was issued last week. We believe that at this time, since that guidance has been taken away, you do not need to leave the country at Thanksgiving break as long as you are maintaining your F1 status, meaning as long as you are enrolled in that full load of courses, even if they are all online, you are able to remain in the United States. Housing, I do believe, is closing at the Thanksgiving break, so I'm going to let Kat step in on terms of on-campus housing, but if you are living off campus, you may certainly remain in your apartment as long as you're continuing your studies. So Kat, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so historically for housing pre-pandemic, we would close at the December break, and the residence halls would close and students tended to either go home or they would find a local friend or would travel within the United States. So this year, because of the pandemic and because of guidance and the possibility of a second spike, we are closing the residence halls at Thanksgiving to make sure safety for all students living on campus. So the residence halls will close and students will be asked to vacate that week of Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Another question that came in states, if I received my form I-20 in May 2020, do I need a newer or updated version?
All right,
No,
go ahead. I want Nia to jump in. Go ahead, Nia, please.
No, I wanted to leave this question up because this will apply probably to a lot of students. If you received an I-20 in May 2020, you are good to go. You don't need a new one. You can use the one that you have. The guidance, as Christine was saying, that came out last week was saying that you needed some new information added to your form I-20. But now that that guidance has been taken back, we don't need to add anything additional. So you can use the I-20 that you have that is for fall. So if you have an I-20 that's already issued and it says your start date is August 2020, go ahead and get your visa using that I-20 and come to campus as soon as you can get there. And you can use the same I-20 that you have already.
Another question that we received is about the hybrid modalities. And PJ, I was wondering if you might be able to give some more insight into what hybrid is versus synchronous, asynchronous, just to clarify that for the group.
Sure, absolutely. So Bentley anticipates offering courses in 3 modalities in the coming term. Hybrid is the first one. In a hybrid modality, the faculty member would be on campus, present in the classroom, teaching from the classroom. And there will be seats available for some of the students to attend the class in person as well, maintaining appropriate social distancing. It's also perfectly fine for a student to log in remotely online to the course. So a hybrid class provides students with the opportunity to attend class in person or online without any serious difference between those two experiences. Of course, for an international student, if you're worried about the previous guidance, that was much of the concern, but we anticipate that being less of a concern for now. So hybrid gives you the options to attend in person or online, and each individual faculty member will work out a schedule for students to attend class based on number of students in the class who are seeking a seat in the classroom. For synchronous online courses, there's still a designated time of day and day of the week for class meetings, but there is no assigned physical classroom. The faculty member will be teaching remotely, and all students in the class will log in at the same time to participate in a class remotely. Those are the two most common modalities that you will see as we work to update modality information in the schedule of classes. By far, the majority of our sections will either be hybrid or synchronous online. We will have a few, relatively few, and carefully selected number of asynchronous online courses, particularly in the first year appropriate courses. These asynchronous online courses do not have a designated time when classes meet, but students work at their own pace, guided by a faculty member working through their class assignments, doing interactive work with classmates in message boards, by posting information for students to react to, and watching online lectures and from their faculty as well. So asynchronous courses, there will be some, and they may be attractive to international students who can't make it to the US, where time zone issues may be a concern, but we're also actively seeking every way we can to make synchronous online courses that will be available at times that will be attractive to students who can't make it to the US.
Great, thank you. I want to refer to one of the questions that were submitted prior to our live event, just to make sure that we get some of these questions answered as well. One of them is, can I delay the beginning of classes to the spring semester? I will offer up a quick response to that, but in regards to visa, please, Nia or Christine, please share your thoughts. Our students can definitely defer to the spring semester if that seems like it is an easier option for you to be able to join the Bentley community. And in order to do that, we are happy to help you work with admissions to be able to change your status to the spring semester. With that being said, I want to make sure this does not impact any pieces with visa. So Nia, Christine, is there anything that you could add to that?
I would agree with you, Gail. If students would like to defer and not take a full load in the fall semester, we would also change the start date on your I-20 and send you a new document that says that your start date is actually January instead of August. But as BL said, it's also important to work with admissions so that they can also have the updated information. If students are just thinking of taking a full load and taking classes all online, as Christine said earlier, you would not begin your F1 status until you come into the US. So even if you are taking a full load in fall, we would not start your status as an F1 student until January. So we would still send you a new I-20. So if you're not on campus in fall for 0 classes or for a full load, you still need a new I-20 for spring.
We received another question, and I'm not sure if this is similar, so I do want to just ask the group just to make sure we get a response. Will I be able to start the fall semester online and come to Bentley later in September if the US opens its borders?
I can take this one if you want to. So yes, as long as you are taking a full load of online courses, and as long as you can arrive in the US by September 28th with an F1 visa in your passport, then yes. If you meet all those criteria, welcome. We would love to have you get to campus before September 28th. If for some reason you cannot come by September 28th or are not taking a full load of courses, then no, that would not be able to happen. So yes, taking a full load, starting it online, get here before September 28th, You can finish it either online or maybe start to attend in person if some of your classes are hybrid. But yes, September 28th is the important point for that question.
A question that we received is more about the trimester system. So if a student did defer to the spring semester, are they still eligible for the free summer semester? I believe that it is, you have to take a full course load in the fall in order to be eligible, but to my colleagues, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I would defer to the guidance on our website to make sure that we have the most accurate language, but I believe that you have the spirit of it, that a student needs to have been enrolled in both terms as the equivalent of a full-time status in order to take advantage of that opportunity. But please make sure you check the Bentley website on the move to trimesters to make sure we have that 100% correct.
And we're going to be sending out a newsletter for new students and families later today, which links directly to the Academic Services website. So people will be able to find some more information there as well, and connects to Back to Bentley and the COVID information. Okay, we received another question, and just want to share this in case this is helpful for the good of the group. What would be the case if you have an embassy appointment for October? Is that too late to arrive on time to Bentley? And if so, should we defer to the spring semester? And would we need to change our I-20? There's a few different pieces in that, but want to make sure we get that.
So if you're not able to get a visa appointment, or if you're not able to obtain your visa until October, then yes, you would need to defer to the spring semester, and you would need a new I-20. So even if you've been able to get your visa already, we would try to send you a new I-20 as soon as late in August or September if you think that it might take that long to get an appointment. I know that the fact that embassies are starting to open today is helpful, but a lot of students have been working on getting visas for some months now. So it could be a delay, and if that happens, then it would be best to defer to the spring semester, since September 28th is the latest you can start classes, and we would send you a new I-20.
I just want to add one helpful piece of information about that. If we do need to send you a new I-20, your Seevis ID number will remain the same. So that's important, because that is the ID number that you need to be able to book your appointment. So you don't have to worry that you need to get a new I-20 before making the appointment. You can still make the appointment and then wait for the new I-20 to get there before your appointment, because it will be the same Seevis ID number.
I want to make sure that we continue to open up time for anyone else on the call to continue to ask questions, but also wanted to reference that we do have our contact information on the slide in front of us, and there's also the link to the Back to Bentley website, which has valuable resources and an FAQ that will continue to populate as we learn more information and guidance to best support our students. So we would definitely encourage you to make sure that you're checking out that website. And also, if there are other questions that come up after you have an opportunity to think a little bit more about the content that we've shared, and or if you are viewing this as a pre-recorded session, please feel free to reach out to us via email so that way we can help assist you the best way that we're able to. One question that did not come up, but I do want to give a selfish plug about orientation. Traditionally, we would invite all of our students back to campus, and we would have a program in person, and it would be nonstop. And we recognize that that is not the safest or healthiest thing to do for our new community members right now. So we are working with our orientation team and our campus partners and campus colleagues to come up with some virtual opportunities for our new students. At this point, hopefully you've already participated in our Bentley Beginnings online orientation, which provides some great foundational information for our new students. And for any family members who are also viewing this live event right now, you have access to the same information as well. We do want to make sure that our students are feeling prepared and ready to start the semester, but also recognize that some of that learning and education is going to continue into the start of the semester. So we'll continue to connect with you from our orientation team through first year seminar, through any of the students who are living on campus. We want to make sure that we can continue to be a resource for you. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us. As I mentioned, we will be communicating more details as soon as we can, but just want to rest assured that regardless of where you may be traveling from or when you're traveling, we will make sure that you get that content and that information to start the semester.
Yeah, it
Yes.
looks like there's maybe a couple of new questions that came in. I think some clarifying questions about the quarantine. A couple of folks have asked where they need to quarantine. So I know we had some new people join in maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes. Could we just reiterate where the quarantine would happen if you do need to quarantine once you're in the US?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that again. So at this point, we are still waiting on guidance for specifically higher education. So our colleges and universities in the state of Massachusetts. Currently, there is conversations regarding who will need to quarantine, where they will need to quarantine, and depending on testing, how that may change or affect the amount of time in quarantine. So at this point, it is difficult for us to answer those questions directly as we are waiting for the guidance. But right now, as it stands, if you are not from Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, or New Jersey, the current guidance is you would have to quarantine coming into Massachusetts. If you are driving, there is notions that you could quarantine for 14 days and then coming into the state directly. If flying, you would have to quarantine in the state of Massachusetts for 14 days. But again, our hope is the new guidance will come out for colleges and universities. And once that does, we'll be communicating with everyone specifically on where you would quarantine, what the university will provide, and an update on the testing piece.
Thank you, Kat. We had another question that came in about classes. And this person said, are we going to have the opportunity of taking classes that are 100% in person? PJ, would you like to take that?
Sure. So this is something that we were looking at closely when the government guidance came out unexpectedly a week or so ago. And Christine Lipner mentioned a plan we had in place to guarantee international students who are coming to the U.S. a seat in first year seminar at the very least. We are looking at whether or not it will be necessary for us to continue that plan. Currently, we think it is probably, as Christine mentioned, a good fail-safe to have in case the government guidance changes yet again. So we're in the process of preparing that, and we'll send you an email to confirm and provide you with information on how you can access that or what you should do to ensure that you are guaranteed a seat in first year seminar. Outside of that space, selecting a seat or selecting a hybrid section during the registration process will give you an opportunity to attend class in person, of course, subject to any changes in instruction for that class, depending on public health scenarios. So, all of our hybrid classes are being prepared to go fully online should there be a need to do so to respond to a public health crisis. So what I can say is, as a minimum, to maintain visa requirements should regulations change yet again, we will have a plan in place. After that, selecting a hybrid section will give you an opportunity to attend class at least some of the time on a rotating basis, so long as instruction is continuing in a hybrid modality. Should there be a need to move online fully, we'd be prepared to do that as well. I hope that answers your question.
Kat, I know that you mentioned this at the start, and I know that your team has sent out some email notification, but would you be able to share a little bit more about when students will find out more information about move-in?
Absolutely. So at this point, my team is currently working to understand kind of the campus map of the residence halls. So over the last week on the 8th, students either needed to sign the COVID addendum or fill out what we call the contract release, which meant you just did not want to live on campus for the fall semester. So at this point, my team is pulling out those students who did not want to live on campus for the fall semester. And also we are currently working to identify isolation and quarantine buildings on campus, which would mean these buildings would be completely empty. So, you know, if a student were to become positive with the coronavirus, they would live in this space. And also it might be used for quarantining when students arrive on campus. So due to those pieces, we need this next week to confirm our housing and our occupancy, and then we'll be communicating back with students by the 30th regarding their status and also on specific move-in instructions, and hopefully having an update on the quarantine piece for everyone.
Thank you. There are a few specific questions around visa appointments, so just want to try to summarize this. If a visa appointment is in September, can this person use their I20 that shows that classes will begin at the end of August? And similarly, if an appointment is in October, can they use the same I20, or does a new one need to be populated?
So I was just about to type this in, so thanks, Bill. If your appointment is in September up to a certain date, you can still use the same I-20. But if the latest date to arrive on campus is September 28th. And after that, we would encourage students to have a start date on your I-20 of January 2021. So if your visa appointment is after, I would say like September 25th, I mean, if it's not going to be possible for you to get a visa and get to campus before September 28th, then it would be best to have a new I-20 for January 2020. If you have a visa appointment in October, likewise, we would issue you an I-20 for January 2020. So let us know if you do have a later visa appointment date, and we'll update your I-20 and mail you a new one.
Great, thank you. And I know that there was a question that was asked about ensuring that immigration registration still occurs even if you participate in the virtual orientation. And we just wanted to reassure that we still will be, working with our students to make sure that immigration registration occurs regardless of the virtual orientation modality. And we'll be communicating that out with students. It looks like we may have covered all of the questions that have been submitted, but wanted to defer some time to my colleagues if there were any closing statements or pieces of information that people would like to close out with.
Just as a follow-up to the question about registering for immigration online, we are working on ways for students to register electronically. However, you do need to be in the United States to register for us to update your F1 record as a student who's on an F1 status in the States. So there may be an online method that we have, and that would be fine to use it, but you do need to be in the US in order for us to physically register you as an F1 student who's active, and we can start your Seevis record. So we're still working on what orientation exactly for international students, for the component that the Center for International Students and Scholars does. We're still working on what exactly that's going to look like, because obviously we're still in a pandemic, but students are arriving to campus. So we will let you know, and we'll send out emails to international students as soon as we have more details on what that component of orientation will look like.
I'll just mention that there are a number of communications coming out of the Office of Academic Services over the course of the next few days with regard to registration on Tuesday. So please make sure you're keeping an eye on your Bentley email, as well as any email that we've used to communicate with you before. Placement information, reminders about important parts of the registration process. There are a number of communications that are coming so that we can ensure that we're doing everything we can to put you in a position to have a successful registration event on the 21st. So keep a close eye on your email.
I would echo what PJ just said. So in terms of housing and providing updates on assignments and move-in and quarantine information, we will be communicating that directly to your Bentley email address. You can always email us at housing@bentley.edu if you have questions. We know this is scary and time consuming, and also that you may be flying in from far away. So we are trying to get you that information as quickly as we can once we have that guidance. So we appreciate your flexibility, and we are very much looking forward to welcoming you to campus in August.
And I just want to add one more comment as well. Specifically to our international students, we know how challenging and stressful this summer has been. We are feeling it too, and I just want to remind everyone that we do have a full team at Bentley, all these colleagues on this call, plus colleagues all over the university who are really, really looking forward to making this the best experience possible for you. I want to reassure you that you've chosen the right place. Bentley is a great environment once you actually get here. It'll be great virtually too. We'll do our best with that. But really, there's something about Bentley that I want you all to be able to feel, which is just that we are here we are a very supportive environment for you to be able to begin your studies in the US. I also want to add that there have been a couple of specific visa questions that have come through in the chat, and I just want to remind folks that our CISS office can answer individual visa questions. So if you want to contact us, our email is right there on the screen. It's ga_CISS@bentley.edu. So that's the easiest way to get answers to your questions if they are on an individual basis.
Thank you for taking some time to join us today. We've really appreciated the opportunity to share some information and some updates, and we recognize that this conversation is going to continue. Please do refer to the Back to Bentley website for FAQs, and also please feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to make sure that we can assist you in any way possible. Thank you again. And we look forward to having you join our community, whether that's on campus, remote, you're a part of this community and you're a Bentley Falcon. So thanks, and we'll see you soon.